بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين أبي القاسم محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين. In the name of God, the most gracious, most merciful. All praise is due to Allah, Lord of the worlds. Prayers and peace be upon the Prophet Muhammad and his holy family. So this is going to be the second video in the series about divine justice. Now when we talk about divine justice, what are we talking about? We said in the previous video that God is always just, no matter what he does. But yet, and all religions and all religious people say this, and they all believe in it. But at the same time, we see evil around us, we see innocent people being killed, we see natural disasters happening and affecting people. So how is this, how is this compatible with divine justice? We see people doing evil, and how is this compatible with divine justice? How could we say that God is just if innocent people are suffering? So what we said in the previous video is that God has established a system in the universe of cause and effect. Okay? And at the same time, he's given us free will. So when you combine the cause and effect, and then you have free will, then the natural result of this is that because people have free will, they will do things that may be evil. They have the ability to do evil, and because of the system of cause and effect, then that means that the evil that they do will have effects and it will have consequences. And this is a very kind of philosophical concept. It's hard to understand this without an illustration or a practical example. So I'm going to try to give you a practical example now about cause and effect and free will, and how this is just, that this is set up. So you're walking with a child in the forest. So you have your son or your daughter with you, or you have maybe a niece. Try and imagine that you have maybe a niece or a nephew, or maybe a young cousin of yours, and you're an adult, and they're like I said, a young child, 5, 6 years old, and you're walking through the forest. And you know that in this forest that you're walking through, there's a trail, there's a path to get through it. And there's also beside the path, there is fruits and nice things to eat, but there's also poisonous things. Things that if you eat it or the child eat it, it'll either make you sick or it'll kill you. And you know that those things are out there, and you know what they are, and you know how to look for them and how to spot them. Unfortunately, the child that you're with doesn't know what they are. They don't know how to look for them. They don't know how to spot them. So when they see something by the trail that's interesting for them, they're going to want to go off and look at it. And if it's brightly colored, they're going to want to touch it. And so you as an adult, it's your responsibility to keep them safe and to make sure that the things that you know that are poisonous, the things that you know that will harm them, that you try to keep them away from those things. And of course the young child doesn't understand that. Now if you want to keep the child safe and you want to keep the child away from those things, you have basically two choices, okay? And choice one is to basically restrain the child somehow so that there's no way they can go off the path. So it could be that you would, every time they went off the path, you could tell them no, and you'd actually grab them and pull them back. Or you could put them on some kind of a leash, like you have, dogs are on a leash. You could put it around their neck or around their waist, and it so that they could only go so far, and then they would snap back. So that's one choice you have. Or the other choice you have is to either, whenever they see something, and they want to go get it, they want to grab it because it's brightly colored or it's, for whatever reason, you can tell them, you can't do that, that's going to hurt you. But then at the same time, you know that they could, even if you tell them that, they could still go off and do it and they could harm themselves. Okay? So if you tie them, most people don't choose to tie them up. Why is that? They don't choose, you don't see this very often. You don't see people with, having a leash on their child. And the reason why is because they know, either they know implicitly or explicitly, they know that at some point the child is going to have to go off on their own, and that if you hold them back forcefully, they're never going to develop, they're never going to learn. And eventually they're going to get out there, and then they're going to, of course, do all those things, make all those mistakes, and they may harm or kill themselves. So they said that it's better to give your child a few limited options and let them fall down, or let them get maybe slightly hurt, so that they learn that they're not supposed to do these things. So how does this apply to what we're talking about? We're talking about divine justice. So you say, well, how does that apply to what you're talking about? Well, this is how it applies. Okay, you as a human being, you know that in the world of existence, you're dealing with levels of existence. For instance, you have a physical existence, and most people with their physical existence, they know what's going to harm them or hurt them. They can stay away from that. For example, they know that if you take a knife and you cut yourself, you're going to bleed and you could die. They know that if you eat something that you know is poisonous, it could kill you. Okay, they know all those things. But at the same time, you know that you also, in addition to your physical existence, you also have a soul and a spirit. And most people, they know, all religions teach that they have a soul and a spirit. But how do you know what's good for your soul, what's good for your spirit? How do you know what could harm your spirit? Most people don't instinctively know this because it's not in a physical world. Like, you can't reach out and touch it or taste it or smell it. Okay, you can't do that with spiritual things. But at the same time, you know that you have a soul and that you have a spirit and that it interacts with other things. But how do you know what's going to harm your soul, what's going to harm your spirit, or what's not going to? Well, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, God, the creator of your soul and the universe, the physical existence, the non-physical existence, everything, knows what is harmful for you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is like this, the being that is guiding you on the path and is telling you, okay, this is harmful for you, this is good for you, you should do this, you should avoid this. Okay? But at the same time, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as a human being, He's not tying you to a leash. He's giving you free will to say, okay, if you want to develop spiritually, if you want to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then He's going to give you that free will to enable you to develop and enable you to avoid the things that you're supposed to avoid because you're obeying Him. And even though you have the ability to do that, like for example, a person who, everybody has the ability to kill. I could go and take a knife and stab somebody and kill them. I could go commit adultery. I could go gambling. I have the ability to do all those things. But me, and not just me, everybody has that. So why do we avoid doing those things? Is because we believe in God, and we believe that the things that He's telling us to do and to avoid, there's a reason for that. And we don't fully understand the reason, but we avoid it anyway. And that enables us to grow and develop spiritually. So we're not on a leash. We have the ability to do a lot of things, but we don't do them in order to develop, and that's the purpose. At the same time, because we don't have a leash, there's people that don't believe it, and they want to do it anyway, and even though their religion may teach, or they may know from from past experience or from other reasons that these certain things are bad and they shouldn't do them, they do them anyway because they want to do them And in the process, this harms other people, and it creates evil in the world. And for example, somebody who, all religions teach you that gambling is wrong to a certain extent. That it's not a good thing, that it's a negative thing, that it has a bad effect on society. You can even look at, government reports or, anything, and it'll tell you that overall in society, gambling is a bad thing. But at the same time, there's many people that do it, many people that do it. That's how Las Vegas and Monaco and Macau and other places stay in business, is because a lot of people, they do gamble, and it creates a lot of problems. It makes people go bankrupt, it destroys families, it causes people to do crime, to do other crimes like stealing, like lying, and other things. But people do it anyway. You're not on a leash. It's the result of free will, the free will that you have. So some people choose to develop spiritually, some people choose not to develop spiritually. And the people that choose not to, then as a result of them not developing spiritually, they create evil in the world. And does God will evil? No. God knows that it's going to happen, but at the same time, he gives people the choice. But because he gives people the choice, he knows certain people are going to do that. But at the same time, it's not his will is for you to listen to him and follow him. Just like a parent's will is for their children to listen to them and follow them. Although all children don't necessarily do that. God is not unjust because he's given you the ability to avoid. Because he's not unjust. People say, well, he's unjust because he gave us the ability. No, he's not, because he's given you guidance through prophets, through wisdom, through things that people innately know that are right. There's something what I talked about before called a fitra inside yourself, and you know basically what's right and wrong. Everybody knows that, and so God isn't unjust because he gave you a way, and a good way, to avoid those things. And there's all of this, good and evil, free will, cause and effect, all of these things that exist. There's a purpose actually for all of these things, and there's a very nice explanation of that and summary of that in the Holy Quran in Surah Al-Ra'd, verse 17. It gives the background for that. It says, أنزل من السماء ماء فسالت أودية بقدرها. He's talking about God here, sends down the water from the sky, sends down the water from the clouds. Sorry. فأحتمل السيل زبادا ربيات. He sends it down according to measure, and the torrents bear along the swelling foam. وَمِمَّا يُقِيدُونَ عَلَيْهِ فِي النَّارِ ابْتِغَاءَ حِلْيَةٍ أَوْ مَتَاعٍ زَبَادٌ مِثْلُهُ. And the torrents bear along the swelling foam, and from what they melt in the fire for the sake of making ornaments or apparatuses arise a scum like it. A scum, the thing that, like sticks and other things that float on the surface of the water. كَذَلِكَ يَضْرِبُ اللَّهُ الْحَقُّ وَالْبَاطِلَ. And thus does Allah compare truth and falsehood. فَأَمَّا الزَّبَدُ فَيَذْهَبُ جُفَاءً وَأَمَّا مَا يَنْفَعُ النَّاسَ فَيَمْكُثُ فِي الْأَرْضِ كَذَلِكَ يَضْرِبُ اللَّهُ الْأَمْثَالَ. So it says, this is how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala compares truth and falsehood. Then as for the scum, the things that float on the surface, it passes away as a worthless thing. And for that which profits people, it stays in the earth. Thus does Allah set forth parables. So, Sadaqallahu al-Azim. So in other words, the things that, the whole process of free will, good and falsehood, of not putting people on a leash, of letting them decide, and then the cause and effect happen. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala compares this in this ayah in the Quran to water flowing down from a higher elevation. When it flows, like free will, when it flows, it gathers sticks and trash and other things, and that float on the surface of the water, and they become like scum on the surface. And then underneath is the water, is the other things that are useful for people. And as for the scum, it says it goes away. So falsehood and like gambling and evil and all these, they vanish, they go away. And the things that are useful for people, like the water, like the minerals, the nitrates that grow the plants, and other things, they stay in the earth. And this is how, and it's the process of the flowing down of the free will that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala separates the scum from the good things that help people. And like I said, this is very beautifully illustrated in this ayah from the Quran, Surah Al-Ra'd, ayah 17. And inshallah, in the next video, we'll start talking about the concept of imamah, how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guides the people by establishing leaders from among them. Wassalamu alaikum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.